look yourself in the mirror. This is hard for people. And say to yourself, I love you. People are just too busy to take time for themselves. We're taking care of everybody else. I found my purpose. I go on the faith side of things, realize that we're made for a purpose. And a lot of people don't get that part yet. So until you discover like why you were created, we all were created with purpose. And I think it's just identifying that. I'll give you the tools. Are you willing to change? Because if you're not willing to change, we're probably not going to get anywhere. What's one little habit I can change tomorrow that can make me a better version of myself? It's like I always say this, I don't have all the answers, but I know who does.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you, Tony, for joining me. And we'll just get right into it. Why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name is Dr. Tony Slinger. I am a chiropractor here in Charles City, Iowa, and my 33rd year of practice. I'm trying to do the math here, but yeah, I was born and raised here in Charles City and got back here after graduate school, and I've remained in practice here in Charles City for that amount of time.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back to the very, very beginning because I know you have a fascinating story. Um, let's start with, yeah, what got you started? When did this whole journey start?
Yeah, well, for me, I was a teenager. I was about 13, and my mom brought me to the chiropractor for the first time. And little did I know that chiropractor would become my stepdad eventually. So, how things work, how God works things out. I had really no purpose before that, but I had pretty severe scoliosis. And at that point, sorry,
No, you're good. You're good.
I had a pretty severe scoliosis and I had enuresis, which is bedwetting as a teenager.
Mm,
And chiropractic helped by getting adjustments and alignment corrected. My nervous system functioned better, and that all went away. And I got healthier and thought, there's something to this chiropractic stuff, and just kind of gave me a direction and a purpose for the first time. And anyhow, my stepdad became my best friend and inspired me in many, many ways. He had a great practice. So we had planned on practicing together. Fast forward through high school and undergrad, and went to grad school. And while I was in grad school, unfortunately, Dr. French became ill with cancer and didn't make it. He died in 1992, a year before I graduated. So my mom kept the practice open as best she could with multiple physicians until I could come home. I got back to Charles City and took over, bought the practice from her, and she moved away. And here I am 30 some years later. So still evolving. Our practice has gone through lots over the years, I would say. But inspirational wise, Dr. French was really the mentor for me that encouraged and empowered me to be a better version of myself and for really to believe in myself that I could do something more with my life. So I
yeah.
knew as a young person, even at 12, 13, I started doing paper routes. Had three, not just one paper route, but three paper routes. So I knew I was, didn't know at the time, but I realized that I was a businessman early in life. And then I worked at McDonald's for quite a while I was going through high school and grad school. So that was kind of my working, you know,
Hmm.
background before I became a chiropractor, and here I am. Um, and most of the practice we had before was pain based, a lot of back pain issues, orthopedic, more foundational that way.
Hmm.
I did that for about 8 to 10 years, and there was just a point in my practice I was just kind of like, this is kind of boring. I was almost burnt out with it. It was the same people with the same problems, coming back and having we'd help them with their back pain for a while, and then they'd come back with more back pain. And I just knew there was more to chiropractic than I was realizing, I guess, at that point. Anyhow, I went to a seminar and one of my continuing education events and learned about some technology. It's called an insight technology, and it's a nervous system evaluator that scans the nervous system through three different parameters. And actually, there was four at the time. I only used three of them. Currently, I still use them, but we assess nerve function through instrumentation.
Mm.
So we do through spinal testing. We'll check heart rate variability through heart rhythms, and then we'll also do two reads off the spine. One being a thermal imaging, which is checking for inflammation areas, and then surface EMG, which is measuring muscle patterns. So I put all that together and then help people understand how well their nervous system's functioning rather than just what they feel. It has nothing to do with pain. But most people live by pain. I was kind of driven away from that because it was, again, I don't like to see people in pain. I'd rather people come
Yeah.
in well or, help them get there and then keep them there. So at that point, I went to learn about this technology. With the purchase of that equipment, which was a significant purchase. I got a trip to Colorado Springs to a seminar on it. And for 3 days in the mountains, I went challenging. And that time I was just challenging the Lord because I felt pulled to the ministry. And I
Mhm.
thought maybe that's where I would be end up going is maybe I'd just be end up pastoring a church or something. And I went to learn more about this instrumentation and I literally wept for 3 days before the Lord in this seminar. And I just felt the Holy Spirit's really speak strong to me that you're in the ministry I've called you to. Now go
Mhm.
do it. And so at that point, I got more purpose driven, and that's kind of what escalated our practice. I ended up coming home on a wellness mission and not to just help people with pain, but help them with purpose and function. And we look at the whole person, not just the physical, but the chemical, the emotional, the spiritual components of every human being, and realize that none of us are getting out of here alive, but we want and we feel that God's purposed us to have our best version when we're here. So I know the medical model is failing a lot of people and it's failed us in the past. I've lost a stepdad and a dad real early in life. And I think that again, what drives me is to try to be here for my kids, my grandkids and that going forward. But what we've seen over the years with our practice is it's evolved from a more orthopedic pain-based practice to more of a functional wellness practice. And so we in the last 7 to 10 years, we've done a lot more functional testing. So we do lab work now more, everything from blood spots to urine analysis to stool testing, depending on what people are looking for, as trying to find what their health goals are. So my first visit's an hour with someone. I usually sit down and do a huge, very in-depth intake to where I try to understand what their issues are, what their goals are, and then what their budget is to help them achieve those goals. Because I think all that's really important to outline for patients as you go forward. And then we work in a relationship with them and try not to overwhelm, yet at the same time, it's a lot of information. And functional medicine really goes to the root cause. So we try to figure out why. Why is this going on? And so I can tell you just from my experience, it's been amazing. I love helping people that have gone everywhere else and haven't gotten any help.
Mhm.
And once we isolate and understand what's going on, we can usually correct the issues and let their body heal as it's intended to be. But what I do know is diet trumps everything, and we start with diet and understanding through exercise and proper stress management is all real key. And the work that we do in our practice is a little bit of your life, but it's an important part because we help direct. And then we only use the highest grade quality supplementation and affiliate links to our practice because we want people to get the best out of what they're getting. And so I say the most expensive supplement is that one that doesn't work or doesn't
I
support
like
you.
that. I like that.
Yeah, and so that's kind of just a nutshell of what our practice is. I mean, we've built a couple of additions over the years. In 2000, we added about uh, 500 square foot. And then in 2007, 2008, we built another 2,500 square foot. My intention was to bring multiple practitioners in. I had 5 staff at the time. So we've evolved, up and down with staff hirings and, you know, management of everything else that we do. We had a functional wellness store for a while. We had a organic delivery business. We've had multiple
Yeah.
factories, whatever we could do to help somebody be their best version. Now I've come to a point where my website's developed. I have about 15 affiliate links on our website, our slingerchiropractic.com website where people can shop wellness, get high quality supplements to delivered to their door. A lot of that with free shipping, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and I can also send scripts to the patients via my website. Like this is what I recommend you do. Here's where you can go save a little bit of money and get it a little bit cheaper.
That's
So
awesome.
we try to help balance all that. But again, doing testing takes time. Changing people's habits takes time. All these things happen over a period of time. There is no magic pill. I would just say that it's not a quick fix, but we do help structurally try to get the alignment correct. Get the foundation correct. On our first day intake, we do a posture analysis through the feet. We typically do X-rays also of the spine to understand the advancing of the age of the spine and if there's subluxation there, which I will obviously do the adjustment part also. So
Yeah, well, let's delve into that a little bit more because I find that fascinating. I think a lot of people will find that fascinating as well, who maybe, how many people have never been to the chiropractor before, or it's just not a part of their regular routine. And they feel like, okay, well, I'll go to a chiropractor if my back, when I'm older, I'm 60, 70 years old, and I'm having back pain, then that's why I go to a chiropractor. And I think maybe for some practices, like you were saying, that they might just only treat pain and they're trying to address the pain, which is still really helpful. But what you're saying is if people can get in there even earlier, ideally, and meet with you one on one, you don't see that in the hospital environment, for example. Like, you go in maybe when you have a problem and then you take these drugs to address that problem. But you never get that analysis of, here's where I'm at with this, and then based off of that, could you go a little deeper into that? Because like I don't feel like very many people are familiar with just
yeah,
the entire process. Yeah.
I completely agree, and then that's kind of what I think my frustration was with practice, honestly, because we've been so entrenched to think about pain and base our life on our pain or our symptoms. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to base it on functionality and optimization of your health and well being. So that's really, really important. So, for example, we have what we call a womb to tomb practice. So newborn babies, my oldest active patient's 95 years old right now that drives herself to the adjustment every 2 weeks. This last week I saw a 1 week old baby. Why would a baby come in for back pain? No, not back pain, but for neurological function. The
Uh,
baby was trapped in the birth canal. Birth is probably the most traumatic thing anybody ever goes through. We don't realize that because we
really?
remember it. So yeah, so it's really important to check babies right away for neurological or interference. So I can do that one part of the scan, which is checking inflammation at the segments of the vertebrae and isolate subluxation. And then through an adjustment, which is a very light technique for babies versus, somebody that's a teenager or middle-aged person, everybody's dynamics are different. So one adjustment isn't always the same. So I think people have in their mindset, it's like crack your back, crack your neck, onto the
Yeah.
neck, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, we're doing a full analysis to understand what the structure tells us. Is there imbalance? And one thing we find a lot with our intake is there's a lot of postural indifferences with people with their feet. So we have a insight, what's called a 3D level imager of the posture that looks at you from underneath. So while you're weight bearing, it shows us the arch indifferences and balance. So most people pronate, which means when you stand, the feet fall down, but then is there imbalance one side to the other? And that's what we can isolate through our foot levelers machinery. That's one of the techs that we have. And now, not everybody gets orthotics when I recommend them, but most of us would need them. I would just say, for me, I had a 17 millimeter short leg, so that's almost an inch. 22 millimeters would be an inch. So when I was weight bearing, I was short on this side, which made the spine curve as I was growing and developing.
Wow,
So
and so it starts down there. So
right,
if you
well,
know that it's off a little bit, and you can, so then what would happen next with the patient then? So
yeah.
you
So
figured that out. Yeah.
once we figure that out, we do a custom insole production through a company called Foot Levelers. So they create the arch component. There's actually three arches in the plantar vault, it's called. Sometimes we have to do heel spur corrections. Sometimes we have to do bunion corrections. There might be some other things in the foot that are causing more of the pain issues, but a lot of foot issues lead to ankle issues, lead to knee issues, lead to
Yeah.
hip issues, lead to back issues, lead to neck issues. So again, foundationally, we want to have good posture through our feet. And most of us are we're on our feet a lot. Uh, there are a lot of people that sit a lot now in sedentary, so we want to have good ergonomics at your work chair. And we also really look at the cervical spine curve. And through X-ray, I analyze what's called a full spine. So we do front views and side views. So we look at the curves, we look at the alignment of the vertebrae, we look for degenerative changes, we look for any pathology, of course. And really, most people don't know this, but after radiologists, there's probably no other physician that has more x-ray hours than a chiropractor because we do analyze a lot of x-rays. Now,
Really? Yeah, I
not
don't
all
think very many
chiropractors are
people know
taking
that.
x-rays, unfortunately, but our practice, our intake, if you're 12 or older, usually I'm going to start with some films because I want to see what that structure is telling us. And I do recommend parents getting their kids in before they hit the growth patterns because once they start growing, a lot of times that, you know, imbalance can lead to curves. And we want to try to
Mhm.
catch those prior than the curves being developed. And then it's a little bit more difficult to take care of it. So I did, because I was still growing when I first started my own care, my spine through the thoracic spine is completely straight now, which I had a pretty severe scoliosis. So, but that's all through just adjustive care. Now I have patients that have had spinal surgery. So they have rods in their back. I can't adjust those areas anymore, but I can go above or below those areas and continue to try to balance them through their feet, through their hips, through their pelvis. But there are a few that have had severe scoliosis that had rods implanted and they still come in for care. So really, there's not really much contraindication for getting adjusted. There'd be the very rare exception, but again, it's very safe, safer than taking an aspirin. Some people are scared of getting adjusted, of the popping, of the noise, but the noise is just the joint capsule releasing. It's a gas
Mm.
exchange. It's not actually the bone cracking. And I often joke when people say get cracked, I said eggs get cracked, people get adjusted. So we want
Really?
to
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
we want to adjust you, but we do that through analysis first. So by doing the full analysis that we do, we get a really good idea where to go. And then I chart that obviously. And then I have an idea. It doesn't take me long to give an adjustment once I know where I'm going. But first 2 days, pretty long visits. Day one and day two are usually about an hour. So it helps us really get an understanding of what your goals are and what we have going on. And then we can establish a game plan from there,
But
come
it's
to a
data
mutual
driven.
agreement.
It's data driven. It's you're understanding as much as you possibly can about them so that you feel comfortable giving your opinion. Like, the more, I've learned about just your wellness practice, and, just chiropractic in general, the more I'm fascinated with the whole, I guess, the mainstream, media's portrayal over chiropractic and, that, hey, it's, these strange people that, you just, yeah, go get your back adjusted, but you could just do all that at the hospital. We could treat your pain. We can fix all that. I mean, have you seen, kind of a step in the right direction with that? The whole misconception, around chiropractic, I guess, what have you seen on your end? And then why is that? Like, why is, the medical industry, why does it almost seem like they're against, in a way, chiropractic and wellness the way that you're talking about it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because for many years in our just in my practice or my understanding of what we do for the last 35 years or so, 40 years, you've seen ebbs and flows of education. And I think the biggest reason that, let's just say, the medical profession may not understand what we do is because they don't know. You
They
know,
just don't know.
it's just lack of knowledge. They think that we're cracking backs and cracking necks, and that's all we're doing. But when you really get the understanding of the science, and then again, graduate school today is 4 years plus 4 years, so it's an 8-year program to get your chiropractic certificate or doctor of chiropractic degree. We are doctors, we are primary care physicians. But again, we don't get qualified as that because we don't use pharmaceuticals. Our hope is to help the body do it naturally. So where I portray more things is how what's there. I always teach it this way. There's only two reasons the person's sick. You're either toxic or you're deficient. Most of us are all both. We're
Yeah.
deficient. We're deficient in minerals today. Our soil's depleted. We spray it all the time. It's just full of toxins, etc., which obviously transfers to the food source, which weakens our systems. And then the same thing is uh, we're deficient, we're also toxic due to the same things, the environmental stressors, the emotional stress that's out there. So again, that's my concept with practice, and I'm kind of answering your question, but I'm not too. I'll come back a little bit more because what I found in practice is you can't just put somebody on a table and adjust them and say that's going to take care of it because stress is so bad in today's world. And I jokingly say there's only three reasons I'm open: stress, stress, or stress, and that's physical, chemical, or emotional. And we try to tie it all together for someone to help them understand. You have to exercise. You have to get your sleep, right? You
Mm,
have to eat well. You have to put good things into the body. This is your only chance, right? And we can't do the standard American diet and expect to be healthy today. It's impossible. But the pharmaceutical companies and the drug company, the medical doctors, a lot of times they'll just say, just establish this blood sugar level and we'll give you this drug to balance that. Well, that doesn't address the why. Why is your pancreas, so deficient and struggling so bad? It's because we're
mhm,
giving it too much sugar, right? So whatever that might be. So that's the difference in what we do. But to answer your question about, I am getting more referrals from the medical model. We
okay,
do have some nurse practitioners in town that do a lot of birthing with a lot of our Mennonite community, which I see a lot of too, and they're referring more and more people to us. We get these complicated cases sometimes with kids with ear infections that aren't responding that they'll send to me. So I do get some referrals, here nor there, and I try to work cooperatively with medical
mhm,
professionals. I can't legally take someone's medication away from them. I would encourage them always to seek a medical provider that will help them get off their medication. That
mm,
should be their goal, not to keep them on drugs for the rest of their life, but to support their deficiencies and toxicity and help them be their best version. But unless you test, it's all a guess,
that's all I guess.
it's all a
Yeah,
guess. So testing can be expensive. And that's why I think a lot of people don't go down the functional medicine side of things. But I tell you, I've seen some pretty miraculous things with people just got no help. And we do a stool test and understand what their gut biome is. And it's like, wow, here's where the issue is. We got to put the fire out. We got to heal your leaky gut. We got to get you away from these food sensitivities so your body can be its best version. Because right now, you're like the person with the headache that keeps banging their head on the wall.
yeah, yes.
Yeah. Wonder why I got a headache, right? Yeah, and it's really crazy because sometimes in our food informational tests, we'll find people are sensitive to healthy things like maybe almonds and broccoli or eggs, or a lot of people are very sensitive to dairy. I think, as a health advice for anybody would be stay away from gluten and stay away from commercial dairy. You do really well. Your body inflammation will go way down. You'll feel a lot better for those reasons. But we do typically do a couple of blood spot tests when we start vitamin D and omega 3s. We like to really see those numbers because those are good inflammatory and immune support. I was just at a functional course just actually the last 2 days. I come back from one of the speakers was a naturopathic cardiovascular surgeon who's um, kind of left the model of surgery and now he's teaching wellness because he understands it was the same people with the same problems opening up the same chest
Over and
because they
over,
weren't
yeah,
changing the lifestyles.
yes,
So it was really, really great to listen to. But one thing that the medical model doesn't ever look at is omega-3 levels, and omega-3s are good fats. So you have omega-3, 6, and 9, basically in our diets. They're essential fatty acids, which means we need them. We don't make them, which means we have to get them through our diet.
we have to. Okay,
Where do you get them through your diet? Well, most omega-3s come from fish, good fish, like a wild Alaskan salmon is like one of the higher grades. Sardines, some of those small fish are really, really high in omega. But everybody I test, Elijah, everybody I test is low.
everyone.
Everyone's. I would
Wow,
say 90, maybe not everyone, 98%.
98. Yeah,
Everybody's low, but there's a percentage number that you're looking for with that, and you want to be between 8 and 11%, 8, 10%. Anybody that's under 8% has risk of cardiovascular disease even worse. If we get that number, this is the most recent statistics. If we can get that number over 8, which we can by
mhm,
supplementation typically, that reduces your chance of a cardiovascular accident or incident of 90%. And most people, when they have a heart attack, 1 out of 2, what happens? They don't survive.
they don't survive.
And a lot of people don't go to the doctor until they have an incident, right? Oh,
Mhm,
something's wrong. Fix me. Well, it's pretty hard to fix a lifetime of issues, in one thing. But one of the tests we offer is a cardiovascular inflammation test, and it's a blood spot where I can look at some more serious markers of cardiovascular and support that patient with lifestyle, exercise, diet, right, and supplementation,
Yeah.
and then retest and show them what the improvement's been. But yeah, getting that number over 8 is I knew it was important. Now I know how important that
Now,
is.
how important it is, and
Yeah.
how early, should people be doing this? And like we talked about earlier, a lot of times people don't, come for anything, healthcare wise until they have a problem. But, with your approach, I mean, what it should it just be at any point they can, as soon as they can get a feel for where they're at? Is that
Yeah.
what you'd recommend?
Well, I think a lot of people in the workforce today, at least from my experience, they have an annual wellness lab that they get from the hospital. And by the way, I have a great working relationship with our local hospital. With the lab
The
techs.
lab,
We
yeah.
refer we refer a lot of people over for blood draws. I don't do a full phlebotomy here, so we do blood spots. The other test, if I'm doing hormone testing through saliva, I'll send that home with patients. Stool test goes home with patients. Urine test goes home with patient. But we do work with them pretty well, and understanding like the lab is important to get that understanding of what we're seeing, what we're seeing. So to answer your question is whenever you're willing or wanting to know where your health is, get tested.
Get tested, yeah.
Yeah, don't wait. And I think the younger you are, the better. I mean, I test my kids. My kids are
Mhm.
all your age or maybe even a little bit younger in some cases, but so that's where you're at. I mean, where do you start? It's up to you. It's up to you to, where do I teach that too with physical exercise to get in shape. What's it take? Once a week, maybe a little bit more than that, right? But movement's essential. We have to stay moving. And even he said, even if you're a sedentary, get up and move 2 minutes every hour.
Mm,
Just by moving those
just
shoulders or
just do
doing
something.
something, even at your desk. Get up, stand, do some deep breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Stress management is key to today's world. And I can tell you how many people have digestive problems, how many people have hormonal problems, how many people can't sleep at night. The list goes on and on and on. And it's, again, not a quick fix, but getting adjusted releases that nervous system to be able to function again. But there are patients, they're so wound up, they can't adjust them when we first start. So we have to work with them nutritionally to balance them out
To
better
balance.
so they can actually get an adjustment.
Over your, because you've been around a while doing this, have you seen any specific trends, one way or another? I mean, just as a whole, I mean, in Iowa here, but even nationally, have things been getting better? Have things been getting worse? What is your thoughts on that? I mean, just at a variety of different
If
subjects.
if we're talking about overall health, the current statistics still are cardiovascular disease is number one killer, cancer number two. Iowa is ranked number one in cancer deaths.
Wait,
Now,
wait, so Iowa is number 1
in the
in
st-
the
in,
in the nation
yeah, in the nation.
for cancer? Okay, wow.
So
Yeah.
why is that? That's why I say, well, why is that?
Yes.
What can we reason? Can we rationalize why is that? Is it just luck? Is it bad luck that we live here in the Midwest? One of the things we test is vitamin D. Vitamin D is an essential vitamin that we do actually make ourselves. It's on every cell receptor of every cell in the body, every cell. So
Every
it's pretty important. God created it for a reason, right? We typically know getting vitamin D through the sunlight. If you're out in the sun and you get some exposure and your liver can, manifest and push that through, you will get some vitamin D level increase. They recommend 20 minutes naked at the equator every day would be about beneficial to get your vitamin D intake. We don't get it here. Again, everybody I test is low,
everyone.
or almost everybody's low.
Wow.
So we
Yeah,
have to boost that. And during COVID, this whole thing with COVID, they found that if you had a vitamin D level less than 50 and you got COVID severe, you didn't survive. So it's important, pretty important, first formulation of what's called a fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. And I could go a whole lot longer with some of the stuff I learned this weekend on tocotrienols, which is vitamin E support. some of the stuff that's been discovered is so much more powerful than the typical supplement that we're able to use in our practice with some of the functional foods and functional resources we have, or just help people get better faster and support them. So what I would say is it different. I think the biggest thing for me that maybe it's just I'm being more sensitive to it is
Yeah,
stress.
just
Stress,
stress.
yeah, stress just people are just
Mm,
too busy to take time for themselves, taking care of everybody else. You know, moms are notorious for this. They take care of everybody else and they forget themselves. I do have a practice full of middle-aged women that have kind of come to that conclusion of, okay, it's time for me to take care of myself.
take care of myself.
Yeah, take care of yourself. And I think that's probably the big thing. But yeah, I'd say again, you can't eat the standard American diet. Everything I look at and research as far as health and wellness is leans toward a Mediterranean type style diet, which is going to be,
Mhm.
more vegetation, more greens, leafy greens, vegetables that way, good fats, extra virgin olive oil daily would be very beneficial. These are some of the wins that you can have. Hydration's huge. Our body's 70% water. Most everybody I see is dehydrated. Most everybody's mineral deficient. So where do you start? You got to give the body what it needs to
Yes,
fuel it.
but yeah. Well, yeah, that's just incredible, and we could go all day long talking about these subjects because, they're fascinating, and I don't think that, well, I know that most people don't know about it, right? And it's clear, and you'd probably say, they couldn't possibly, we're not equipped with the resources, to be able to know this for ourselves, and, we are relying on experts like you, if we could duplicate you and learn more. But let's go back to your entrepreneurial journey. With some of our time left here, just like when you got started, right? I guess like what would you tell your younger self, like getting into doing this? Would you say do it all over again? It's worth it, or would you say, um, maybe this is too much of a burden? If I knew what I knew today, I would maybe go do something else. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like I found my purpose. And again, if I go on the faith side of things,
Yeah.
realizing that we're made for a purpose, and a lot of people aren't there or don't get that part yet. So until you discover like why you were created, which we all were created with purpose, and I think it's just identifying that. And whatever purpose you're in, it's a ministry. Our ultimate goal is to win people to the Lord, and heaven's our eternity, right? This is just a
Mhm.
short stop on the way. So what I would say, what if I do different? I, I kind of always plan to come back home. So obviously I didn't plan for my stepdad not to be here. So I did have to learn a lot the hard way, by trial and error and learning to get going. We've had a successful practice for many years, um, whatever that is in the eye of the beholder. Um, I probably wouldn't have added everything that I've done as far as the extra building, the
Yeah.
extra space, because now I don't feel like I need it. We utilize a lot. Like we put on uh, a store on one side of the practice that, just as another story, a side story. Sorry, rabbit
Yeah.
hole.
No, go for it.
We did foster care for like 3 years, and we saw the needs that these kids had when they came to us, after our kids were through school. And it's like, all these kids, they didn't even have clothes on their back. And so we have a store that's part of our practice, called the Clothing Closet, where people just bring stuff, donate it. My wife and my sister-in-law wash it up, clean it up, and put it out. And then people come in and they
That's
leave a
awesome.
free will offering if they want to leave, or if they're able to leave something, leave a little change or whatever, and they can help themselves. So that's open when we're open, by the way, yeah, at 501 11th Street in Charles City here. And it's welcome, it's open to everybody. So that's part of that ministry part of what you see later, why you go through things, and here you are. But we did build that, we built a big addition. We probably at this point didn't need it. That maybe be the one thing I would maybe do different, maybe just pause. My wife didn't always work with me either. So she's been working with me for probably about the last 10 years. Um,
Mhm.
if we probably would have done that initially together, like she stayed home, raised the kids, for a while, when we first started, and then she came in and started taking over. She's had a business background, so she's really cleaned up our business side of things. Right now,
Mhm.
it's just her and I in the practice. We have no staff. It's pretty lean. That's pretty
Yeah.
lean. And to do what we do and the volume that we do is a lot of extra effort too. And people don't see those hours that you put in. So I wouldn't change it. I love being my own boss. I
That's
love
awesome.
the opportunity to serve. I'm just not, always go back and forth with, is it our purpose together? I do think it is. I think that God called us to it together. It's just finding that balance because you still want to have balance for family. You still want to have balance for your kids, your grandkids, your parents, everybody else that's involved in your circle. So I try to stay grounded. I try to start my day, devotionally and in the word, uh, purposely driven daily, help lead a Bible study Thursday mornings early before before I come to work. So, try to do those other things that just try to stay engaged as much as I can and realize that it's not about me. It's never been about me, but the more I can understand and learn, the more people I can help. And is everybody going to be open to what I have to say? No. I get that. I used to try to pull people to health. I don't anymore. Let
Mm,
me know where you're at and help you get to where you want to go, but I can't make you do something you don't want to do. You have to have the will, the ambition, and the know how to do it. I'll give you the tools. It's like I always say this, I don't have all the answers, but I know who does,
mm,
in the word. But if I don't have the answers as far as the clinical side, as far as the nutritional side, I'll get them because that's what I do. I've been working all day today, just bringing back the notes from this weekend. How can I apply those to my practice immediately? Uh,
mm,
and I go back to stress being a big issue, but cardiovascular health is the biggest elephant in the room that people aren't getting right proper care for. So if we can direct them through our testing and through our, protocols to help them be their best version, we can help save a lot of lives, which means a lot of grandparents can see grandkids. My dad never got to meet my wife, never got to meet my kids. I don't want that for you or myself, right? So I want
mhm.
to try to carry that next generation and make them healthier. Our children, for the first time in decades, have a less life expectancy than us. Tell me that's right. That's not right.
That's
And
crazy.
again, that's because of the toxicity in the world and the food that's being devoid. Now, I do think with our current administration, with RFK in there, he's been really spearheading some very good, healthy advocate, advocating things for our country. All
Mhm.
behind that. So that's where I stand that way. I think that what he's doing is going to help save and change a lot of lives, but it's stuff that I've known for years. But I'm only, like you said, one person.
Only one person. It takes time. And how frustrating is that, I guess being in the field, you guys are probably, maybe a decade, 2 decades, maybe 3 decades ahead of what's maybe starting to happen today. I mean, I guess one, how have you dealt with that and, that frustration? And, yeah, I mean, that would be, to me, pretty, I don't know, uh,
Frustrating?
yeah, yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it is. At times there's certain frustration. And again, I think bringing it back to being in the present.
Being the
Who,
yeah.
who today is the Lord going to send my way that needs help? Yeah, and I'll give him whatever I have, and if it's not enough, it's not enough, but we'll do what we can do to help them be their best version. But again, most of the decision is up to them, and I think
Mm,
again, that's the thing that it is frustrating because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So,
I
and I
love
can do
that.
everything else right, but they still have. I tell patients that I don't come home with you. I
Mm,
don't come home with you. And I'm not saying my lifestyle is perfect by any means. I kind of live by an 80-20 principle.
yeah,
Most people are inverted. They live by a 20-80 principle, and 20% of the time is what they care about rather than 80. And I think you should be on an 80-20 at least, you know.
yeah. Yeah, well,
Uh,
explain that a little bit for our viewers, like the 20-80 principle and 80-20, like how that would relate to health, but just in general, how that works.
Yeah, I kind of use it this way as far as 80% of the time I'm making the right choices. I'm doing the right decision making as far as my diet, exercise program, sleep patterns, stress load management, everything else. And then I still might enjoy a birthday party, right, with cake and ice cream. But I can't do that every day and expect to be healthy. So those are the concepts that I try to take part of that. So whether that's exercise, whether that's getting adjusted, right, whether that's supplementation, whether that's your sleep management, stress management. What are you doing to better yourself? And the spiritual aspect too. And that's what I'm trying to help teach these young men.
Mm,
Spiritually, it starts with that. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. It's not the other way around. And
mm.
people are so hung up on the human nature that we forget the bigger picture. And again, none of us are getting out of here alive, but I do believe God wants us to be our best version while we're
Want to
here.
be their best.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and when we think about the 80/20 rule, don't you feel like oftentimes, especially as entrepreneurs, we can be so hard on ourselves to be maybe perfect, or you probably see this with your patients, they fail to, maybe be at 100%, and then that failure maybe will cascade into more failures. It's like, oh, I missed the gym this week, and so then I just don't go to the gym next week, and I don't go to the gym again. And so what you're saying is it's better to just, yeah, maybe you can't go 3 times a week or you can't eat healthy all the time, but let's start where here, and let's build up over time. And I get that when I meet with young entrepreneurs or people just starting out, they can't maybe work as long hours, or they haven't built that discipline. And I don't know, would you say you could relate to that with patients? Do they sometimes have that frustration, like, and you're able to maybe coach them or guide them into, hey, I'm not perfect either?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I think, yeah, let's go back to the spiritual for just a minute because we do with salvation. It's a free gift. We don't have to earn it. We don't have
Mm,
to keep working, we don't have to be our best version before we come to the Lord. You know, we want to make our presence in the Lord, with the Lord, and then everything else falls into place. And
mhm.
that's the frustration of why we try to appease and please everybody else. It's not, when
We
that's
feel
not,
like we have to be 100% before we jump into that presence, before we, go to the gym. I've heard that before. People won't go to the gym because, they're out of shape, and there's that, it's like, I got to be in shape to go to the gym, or, and it's really sad, and you got to start somewhere.
yeah, and that's the truth. And the typical protocols, and that's kind of what I do with when I start with someone, especially on the functional model. If we're going to do some expensive testing, I'm going to tell this patient, are you willing to change?
Mm.
Because if you're not willing to change, we're probably not going to get anywhere. Because I'll guarantee you there's something that needs to change.
Are you willing to
You wouldn't
change? You
be here.
asked that right away. I love that. Yeah.
So that's kind of a good application, I think, to life. Wherever you're at, you can do your own, inventory of spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, wherever you're at, and those parameters of your person. How do I grade myself on a 1 to 10, and what could I do better? What's
Mm,
one little habit I can change tomorrow that can make me a better version of myself? And again, one of the challenges I do with my patients sometimes is I say, look yourself in the mirror. This is hard for people. And say to yourself, I love you
mm.
10 times. And people can't do it. Because again, it's hard to love yourself sometimes. And again, it's not about us. Never has been. God's purpose is perfect for you if we will allow it. And again, we have free will, so we have to choose. We have to choose. And I choose the natural model. I choose, I choose not to vaccinate my kids, right? I choose to
Mhm.
eat healthy. I choose to exercise. I choose to think well. I choose to stay in my word. I choose that relationship that's right. Um, and everything else just kind of exemplifies from that. So uh, I don't know that there's anything else as far as the business things that struggle with, but other than, there's times where staff is an issue and hiring other people and going through that process we're,
Mhm.
as a chiropractor, for us, we don't typically work under a model like Mercy Healthcare or someone else. You're an individual. It's your own business. It's your own entity, your own corporation. So having to understand all the business and the attorney and the, state laws and all that other stuff, that's a lot of stuff you don't get taught as in the business world of taxation and
Mhm.
everything that goes along with it. So those are some things that can be headaches, but there's people out there that can help you. And I always say hire what you don't know.
Mm.
That may be a good thing for this group, right?
Yes.
Because we can all work together as entrepreneurs to help each other. And you're going to have struggles. You're going to have valleys. There's no doubt about it, right? So what do you do in that situation? When you fall down or you hit a roadblock, what do you do? Do you get back up? And I just say it's only failure if you don't get back up. So get back
I
up. Let's
I
try
love
again
that.
more. Right.
I love that, and I love your passion for what you do because I think a lot of times, uh, people they just start with, okay, well, what makes the most money, or how can I make a lot? And chiropractors can do very well, but how important is that passion component? That why you're doing it in your field. I mean, have you seen other chiropractors maybe do it for the money and maybe not have very much success with it? Is that something you see, or do they just not even make it to that stage? Because it seems like the nature of your work could be very hard. I mean, to be working one on one with people, to be putting in all that effort for them to change, and then maybe not the frustrations of, maybe them not coming through on their end, or just even having to interact with people and their personal issues on a day to day basis. It seems hard. Um, so yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'll go all the way back to grad school.
yeah,
We started with 170 people in our class. We were told the first day introduction that half of you will fail. That got my attention. Well, I just spent that much money on tuition, and I busted my tail for the first two trimesters for sure. Put everything I had into it because I was scared, to be quite frankly. That was just my own dime, by the way. I had nobody help me with college. I paid for it all myself. I worked, like I said, I worked at McDonald's. I didn't have financial backing from my parents at that time. It was just the point of there was no help. I was the first one in my family of four boys to go to college.
to go to college.
Yeah. So I was the first one to even go to college, and then I pressed in and took out, a couple $100,000 of debt by the time I was done with grad school. But we did actually only graduate, I think, was I want to say 86 out of the 168 that started or something like that. So it was real close. And yeah, I know I'm still friends with some classmates. I actually just saw a couple this weekend when I was just up north, and there's both. There's good and bad stories, right? There's people that have committed suicide in my class. There's people that have just failed bluntly, where or within 2 years of practice didn't make it. And there's several of us that are still pursuing our passion and our dreams. And again, no matter what you do, love it, you know, and be called to it because life's too short not to enjoy what you do every day.
Yeah,
Right. But
yes.
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of frustration and there's a lot of times it gets too hard. I know there's a lot of people that work for other docs. And again, I've kind of always been my own person. And I don't have quite the exit strategy planned out yet, but I'm not young anymore. So I'm trying to, you know, iron out all this as we go forward. But I do love what I do. So
That's awesome. Well, that leads into that next last question here before we get off, which is, what are those next steps? You mentioned that you went from this chiropractor that, you're addressing their pain, you're helping them with their pain, to moving more into this functional, right? Is that what you called it? Functional medicine, where you're really using a data-driven approach, understanding who they are, their unique needs, and now you've built this wellness center. I mean, I was on your website before this call. It looks beautiful, and you've got all this information and products. And what's kind of next? Is this, are you where you want to be with it, and you're just going to grow what you have here now into the next step? So, what's next for Slinger Chiropractic?
that's a tough question
Yeah.
because we're 33 years in, right? So
Yes.
but I did think about that a little bit. And I think, actually, my wife and I were talking last night, and she knew I was having this call today, and she's like, "I think that's something that you should do more podcast,
Yeah.
more explanation of what you do, so people can get an understanding." So that's possibility. I think a real high possibility. I had someone probably 15 years ago tell me you should do a YouTube channel. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But now I
Oh
think
man,
back,
I
and go, oh, I
completely
should have.
agree. I completely agree. I mean, just in this one call, the amount I've learned, and I can't imagine when we send this out to our audience, just how much they're going to learn. And they probably have so many questions,
Right.
like I want to know, like, I don't know what is vitamin D? How does, all this relate? So that's one thing. If people are watching this, where should they go? Where should they reach out to you? How could they follow along? If they live farther away, what could they do? Do you have maybe an email list, or
Yeah, we
yeah,
do. Yeah, on our
okay.
website, you can contact us through our website. It comes to my email. So I get that email and then I can take questions that way. And if it's something that we need to set up a time for,
Yeah.
for a consultation time, we can certainly do that. So yeah, and that may be one of the advancements going forward, more virtual. I do have patients in California, Missouri, Colorado. So
Whoa. Wow.
quote unquote that I work with. I don't adjust them, but we do functional work with them. Florida. So we have multiple areas of the country that we do work with a few people. But yeah, my mainstay is right here in our North Iowa area. We pull from a lot of the communities around, and then even the bigger cities around, because there isn't a lot of clinics like ours. Uh,
No.
we
No, it
haven't
doesn't
really
seem like it.
marketed it, to be honest with you. And that's the thing is because it's just me. How much more can just me do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting, but, we're gonna do as much as we can while the time that we have to do it, but I think, virtual coaching perhaps that or more podcast, utilizing the technology that's advanced today, and I think to answer your question earlier about what's changed, I think that's what's changed. Yeah, everybody is Doctor Google now, so, you know, they can Google and understand as much as their medical doctor. When we have people go through our 7 systems course, I literally tell them, "You know more than any medical professional does on nutrition now." And they do. They
Yeah.
do. But do they apply it? Do they live it? Do they put it to their person? But we'll give them the tools. It's and get up to them to use it.
It's
So,
up to them to use it. All right,
yeah.
well, I'll sneak in one last question, then we'll wrap up.
All right.
Um, this has to do with entrepreneurship. You're one of our founding members of Entrepreneurs of Iowa, and we're just getting our own group off the ground and building that community. Because Iowa has its own unique entrepreneurial needs. If you look at any stat, just like that, our health is really lacking in the state of Iowa. Entrepreneurship, we have so many rural communities, so many people who struggle getting going, struggle finding community. What would you say are areas just in your 33 years of just being around the business community and seeing entrepreneurs come, go, even in rural Iowa? What are some things that I guess Iowa entrepreneurs as a whole could do better, or why? Yeah, where can we improve? What can we do better? Where's the gaps? Why do you think that maybe sometimes it feels like we're 10, 15 years behind maybe some of these other states where things are booming and growing significantly quicker?
Yeah, I think a couple of things there. I want to bring back to my practice just a little bit. We
Yeah.
actually have a large city practice in a small town. We're so advanced technologically that people come in, they said no idea you had any of this going on, right? So
Yes.
that's a good point. And I do think that we're behind. And I think the best thing I could say for entrepreneurs is relationships. And what you have going with EOI, I think is great, phenomenal way. When I first started practice, one of my first phone calls was from a friend that was involved in the Chamber of Commerce. And he said, Tony, you should get involved. And I did. And I
Yeah.
served in the chamber. I was president of the chamber. I went through that process. Um, and I built a lot of relationships early in practice and in the community. And obviously, we have a pretty good relationship, with our community, and we've been here for
Yes.
this long now. So those are nice to have, in your contact list when you need something. Yeah, if I need banking help, I know who to call, right? If I need insurance help, I know who to call. If I need, you know, more peer advice on,
You know
account,
who to call.
whatever else that it
Yes.
is, I know who to call. And that building those relationships and communicating is key. Um, Relationship capital, I call it. It's
Mm.
really, really important. And I think what you have going is great. So I
Oh, thank
applaud you
you.
for that. And I
Thank
think
you.
just getting started, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, appreciate your time so much. This was wonderful getting to dive into some of these topics. I totally think you should start a podcast. I'd be your first and most active subscriber. So I'm all about learning this type of thing. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And
So make sure just one
yeah,
more time, we just
yeah,
mentioned slingerchiropractic.com, the
yes, yes.
website. There's a
And
lot
I'll
of
include it
tools.
in the link in the description here as well. Wherever you guys are seeing this video, and you'll be able to click the link in the description. His website will be right there.
And like us
So
on Facebook too, or same thing. We
yeah,
do a lot
yeah.
of promotional stuff on Facebook if we do it. And actually I'm working with, Spencer, I'm working with a website
But
developer
yeah,
that we're just getting my own personal website finalized, but I have like 15 affiliate link stores on there. So there's a lot of different things from proper mattress support to, air purification systems to water systems to high grade supplementation to infrared therapy, whatever. There's all kinds of things on there. So play around on it.
Yeah, and
Almost
if they want more information, just shoot
reach
you an
out.
email. Okay,
Absolutely. Shoot me an
awesome.
email. Thank you.
Alright. Yes, thank you so much. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
God bless you. We'll see you
Yep,
Thursday.
bye.